Thank you so much, Minister. Thank you, Ambassador Pillai. Ambassador Pillai will now has joined Minister Khurshid for the question and answer session, and he will kindly chair the session as well. So I now hand the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for a brilliant speech. Indian leaders generally are very eloquent in articulating their views. Even by the high standard of India, I think the Minister today, I think, displayed eloquence of his ability to articulate very clearly the views of his country and what he thinks can happen in the future. I am very touched by the kind words he said about Singapore. He said that Singapore was an example of the pinnacle of success, to use his words. And he also thanked Singapore for opening the door. I think the doors would have been open to India anyway, but maybe Singapore allowed a little bit of wind from this part of the world to make it a little more ajar. The third point I wanted to make to the Minister, he mentioned about the connectivity, the land connectivity. I'm very happy to say that the ISATS has already started to work on, we are doing some studies on the northeast of India and its connectivity to ASEAN through Myanmar. We have a study group. I think we are publishing some publication. We are going to have a conference on that, if I am right. So these are the 3 points I have. I just wanted to make that before I open it. I'm sure you have many, many questions. And Minister has been kind enough to answer. He has had a very heavy day, so don't be too unkind to him. He said he will want water before answering questions, which we have provided. So do ask your questions as politely and as sharply as possible. Yeah. Yes, please, yeah.
For your wonderful speech, and thank you. Welcome to Singapore. I have a question for you from the media side. I publish a magazine called India Say. It's the first and possibly the only magazine for overseas Indians in Singapore, Malaysia, and we hope to make it regional as well. We've noticed in all the time that we've been here, I mean that's quite considerable, over 20 years, that China, the other great giant, economic giant and political giant in Asia and I'd say the world, is making quite great strides in its state media, penetrating many countries and being quite a voice both on print and television, etc. Being accepted not just by their diaspora, but even by the mainstream media in various countries. We don't see Indian state media doing likewise. In fact, whatever soft power of India is carried across the world is usually done by the private sector. For instance, the entertainment channels, ZTV and Sony, etc. And I'm able to say a magazine like India Say, which is ours. So what does the foreign ministry or what does the government of India plan to do to connect more with the diaspora? And we don't mean just politically.
I think you've touched on a very, very important point. I have an explanation. When you move from a controlled system to an open system, sometimes you assume that the open system has its own correctives, and that the general preferences and the market allows things and ideas to find their own place. This has not been our general experience. We found that, as I just mentioned, in education, we found that in the marketplace. When you're an imperfect market, you need to continue intervention and you need to continue supporting those who would be initially disadvantaged in the market, whether it's the market of ideas, education, of jobs, of skills, and opportunities. And that's what we have done in our country. In our constitutional arrangement, we provide for reservations. We now, in all elected offices below Parliament, we provide for 50% reservation for women. In many cases, there are 60% women getting elected now over the generations. But we still think it's important to provide that affirmative assistance to women, as indeed we believe we need to provide it to certain categories of social groups that would be disadvantaged, despite the mandate of equality that the Constitution provides. Similarly, I think in the area of media, we had a very strong state media presence across the globe to the extent that we had a footprint in the past. But that's contracted because we vacated space for private media. And we have a very vigorous and vast private media in our country, much to a great deal of discomfort of some of us in public life. But we believe it's a commitment to democracy, and our discomfort is a very small thing compared to the advantage that democracy has by free media. And free media means unregulated media. Nowhere in the world is there unregulated media. We have unregulated media. But be that as it may, it's again an unique Indian way of life. I agree that our presence in terms of open market, our media has not attended to our place in the sun, or under the sun in the world. And they also haven't shown enough interest in the world because there is so much available to them on the domestic menu. And we are still examining in the ministry how we can work beyond what we are doing at present. We introduced a few years ago the public diplomacy division in our ministry, beyond the external publicity division, which has now become an outreach arm of our ministry, using both the soft and the hard areas of diplomacy. But I think that your point that there has to be a media presence is very important. Secretary and I were discussing it, in fact, earlier today. We've discussed this back at home as well. We are in touch with some people who want to collaborate with the Ministry of External Affairs to create platforms in which there would be assistance from us in terms of material that they would otherwise have to collect at great cost to themselves, but that we would not be controlling them because that's not permissible or advisable. But the material would be available for dissemination, and that would give them the platform on which they would then be able to provide an outreach and feedback channels to the world, particularly that part of the world where we are active. And I hope that in not too distant future we'll be able to do this. But meanwhile, the good work that people like you are doing should continue. And now that modern technology allows you to reach much further and much faster, I hope that you will take advantage of modern technology and give us the assistance that we need.
It's great. Maybe you can use the mic for that.
So, Mr. Minister, I'm Surya from ISIS. So, to take you away from East Asia for a while remaining in East Asia, you may recall that the US President Barack Obama and the Chinese President Xi Jinping had a massive summit spread over several hours, more than 8 hours of talking. And they decided to move towards a new type or a new model of relationship between two great powers, namely China and the US. This amounts to something like an informal G2 or group of two consisting of China and the US. A G2 of partnership, if not G2 of power sharing. In these circumstances, what in your opinion is or should be India's strategic vision? Should it be neo-non-alignment as between China and the US? Should it be tilt towards the US? Should it be autonomy in the traditional sense of the term, or should it be something like India remaining a constrained power in the South Asian region itself? Thank you, sir.
Well, let me just take the last part of your question. India has no reason and has certainly not any inclination to remain confined to any part of the world. Of course, there are issues about human resources and financial capacity and physical ability, etc. But I have already visited Latin America, and I expect again within a month or so to visit Latin America once again, and to have a HOM's conference, heads of mission conference there in Latin America, which we are doing here now. Tomorrow I will have heads of mission from all across the ASEAN countries meet me here. We've done it in Africa and Uganda already, and hopefully we will be able to do this exercise in Central Asia and in parts of Europe as well. So it is our intention not to remain away from any part of the globe, and you would be interested to know that I've just been to Arctic, and I tried to go to the Antarctic, and I couldn't go there because of bad weather, but I got as close as I could to the Antarctic in bad weather. So we are going to go everywhere. What we need to do is to strengthen our numbers. We are looking at a 10-year plan for doubling the numbers that we have in the Foreign Service, and also having a lateral entry for 2-3 years for people with domain knowledge from other sectors. And all this is going apace. As far as China and the US are concerned, we treat both of them on merit as strategic partners. We've never been known to subscribe to a view that was projected that the United States of America would be interested in encircling China. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But we didn't in any way think that that was a great idea to which India would want to subscribe. Similarly, we've never given China any reason to believe that we treat our relationship with China to be conditional upon and based on our relationship with somebody else or their relationship with somebody else. You know, we have engaged with China despite our difficulties with Pakistan and their compulsion or historical alliance, close alliance with Pakistan, but we haven't allowed that to come in the way of a progressive engagement with China that, as you have seen, has grown rapidly. Our Prime Minister met the previous leadership 8 times in the last few years, and the first visit that the Premier Lee made outside his country was in New Delhi, which I think was a very, very, very important and significant gesture. So we would deal with every country, big or small, on merits. We deal with Maldives and Russia and China, Japan and everyone. And we've dealt with Iran as a friend to the full knowledge of the United States of America. They have not told us that you must stop talking to Iran, which is a good thing. The important thing is that India is able to talk openly and clearly to anyone. I met yesterday the Foreign Minister of North Korea, and we talked openly, frankly. We have a lot of important events going on, part of a celebration of 40 years of our diplomatic relations, but at the same time, we have said so at the UN, and we said so to him as well. We said that if you're looking for security, it'll come through engagement and relationships with the globe, not by isolating yourself on some pretext, going nuclear and isolating yourselves from the rest of the world, making it more difficult for even those who are your friends to argue a case for you. And we were quite, at the same time, if they have humanitarian concerns, we would want to address them. So I think that we don't like putting ourselves in a box anywhere. And frankly, the language that we use during the heyday of the NAM movement is today translated into a modern day phrase that we use, which is strategic autonomy. We remain strategically autonomous. Remaining strategically autonomous is, we believe, the right moral thing to do. It may have specific advantages and disadvantages given the situation in the world, but we do believe that our foreign policy has a huge element of moral principles built into it, and it's consistent with those moral principles that we don't place ourselves in any group or any alliance that would be inimical to anybody else.
Okay, maybe can I start from the back? Yes?
Your Excellency, my name is Tangri. I run a small blog in Singapore, so I speak from a pseudo-intellectual perspective. Several points I picked up. One is mentioned that India has an interest in seeing ASEAN stable and secure. So when you say security, does that mean that India, in its efforts to help this region stay secure, will be sending some military forces once in a while just to help patrol the area? The second thought I had was, we talked about the two big giants of Asia, being India and China. You just mentioned Prime Minister Lee's first visit was to India. Now we talk, in the sense of ASEAN, you have India, which is, I think, running all the services, China's running manufacturing, everything. There's a bit of fear in this part of the world that, you know, everything's going to be swallowed up by these two giants. So do you see that? What would you say to that? Do you see India as being an investor overseas and encouraging ASEAN nations to welcome Indian investment and say that we're not just going to swallow everything up? And the third point I have is that, and this was a point that Dr. Zakir made in April, is that India is a democracy with democratic institutions. How much of India being a democracy do you see? The democracy of India meaning as influencing foreign policy. In a sense that when you talk to the dictatorship, you know, when you talk to the president of a dictatorship, you're talking to that entire country, whereas you talk to somebody in a democracy, the leader actually has, in the case of India, several hundred million people to answer to.
Right, thank you. Thanks very much. I think that's a whole week's answer that I need to give to you with the questions. But as far as security, strategic relationships are concerned, we do exercises with countries in the region. We do with Singapore, for instance, exercises and training for Army and the Air Force. And I think that's the reason being that I asked my High Commissioner why not the Navy, and she said there's a lot of water around here, no air and land. So India has to give its land and air to collaborate with the armed forces of Singapore. So we do a lot of training, we do exchange of visits of ships, we do a lot of exchanging of information and capacity building. But India doesn't, as a matter of policy, India doesn't engage and believes that it's not very sensible to engage in a way of involving our troops and our fighting forces in any country. We believe in self-reliance, and we believe that every country should have its own ability to protect and defend itself. But of course, there is a larger perspective, which is what ARF is about, and their contribution that one can jointly and collectively make. We are always willing to do so, and we will continue to do so. As far as your concerns about China's ability and economic clout and might is concerned, I think ultimately you have to decide. There will always be different models available. You know, you don't worry about one particular car being eaten up by another car, because there are 2 cars in the market. There are 30 cars or 40 cars in the market, and you pick the best that you like. Somebody likes an SUV, somebody likes a small car, somebody likes a flashy car, somebody likes a sports car. somebody likes a car with 6 gears, and somebody likes a car with 4 gears, depending on fuel efficiency. I think it's important that the world grows in prosperity and in opportunity, that there should be for every country a menu to choose from. We may offer one model, China may offer another model. And I think ultimately the market itself will ensure that the best product of a country gets celebrated and gets applauded, and the shakeout in the market will then give priority in some products to one country and other products to another country. And I think that this is not something on which there should be any major concern. In fact, the good thing is that you have both the Chinese menu and the Indian menu, as indeed you may have other menus as well. I'm told the American menu is not an attractive one these days because Americans are not producing a lot. So, but they may get back in their economy, they may get back to manufacture and production once again, so you may have another menu. And I don't think that should be a concern. The more the merrier. And finally, the market will ensure, the global market will ensure efficiencies to give you the best product at the best price. So I don't think that should be a concern and a worry, and it's certainly not a concern and a worry for us at all. We believe that we can deal with the pressures of the Chinese products by improving our own efficiency and ensuring that innovation gives us an alternative product that, at least for our own consumption, will be more attractive. But protectionism is something that we agree neither China nor India or America, or for that matter ASEAN, should protectionist walls should not be created once again. But in terms of competition, there is no harm, legitimate competition between all the economies.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Excellency. My name is Shri Salman. I'm an Indian, but I have lived and worked in Singapore for the last 12 years very happily. And I think other Indians should thank Singapore for the warm welcome always extended to us. But my question really, sir, is about connectivity. You had talked about land connectivity, which of course is very important between India and the ASEAN countries. But I think with the large seaboard which India has, and also being the large country it is, sea and air connectivity are also equally, if not more important than land connectivity alone. A lot of ASEAN countries, I think, which need even greater sea connectivity with India, particularly Myanmar, for instance, and Thailand. And I know they are developing ports on the western seaboard of ASEAN so that they can have greater connectivity with India. On the question of air connectivity, sir, I would like to think it would be good if India could be generous in affording ASEAN airlines more connectivity with India, particularly when it comes to bilateral air services agreements. I've heard, I don't know whether it's true or not, that in some cases, Singapore Airlines and Silk Air have been denied routes simply because Indian airlines do not have enough planes to operate those routes. For instance, a route from Pune to Singapore, for instance. I don't know if this is true or not, but maybe it's worth checking into. Similarly, I think other ASEAN airlines, which are developing, would like to establish flights to India. And maybe the passenger traffic is not enough for Indian airlines to fly to these countries. But surely we can be generous and allow airlines from ASEAN to operate.
Well, I take your point. I think that we discussed today in a very preliminary sort of way air connectivity. And we have a priority. I'm given to understand that there are ASEAN slots available that can be utilized, particularly in the area of Northeast, where we think that we have enormous amount to gain by providing Northeast connectivity with ASEAN. I think if that were to happen, we would probably have the kind of situation we have in Andhra Pradesh and Kerala vis-a-vis the West Asian countries. Because of their connectivity is so good that sometimes it's easier to go from Kerala to Dubai and to Delhi than to fly directly to Delhi. So if we can get something like that in the Northeast, I intend to go back and talk to the Civil Aviation Minister. If there are issues of this nature, I think we should solve them. I think today, as we discussed, budget airlines can open up a whole new opportunity between India and ASEAN. And as far as the seaboard connectivity is concerned, we are putting that as a high priority. And we mentioned this also at the ASEAN meeting yesterday. And we will certainly look at how that can be done. I think that's a tremendous potential. And there are no real vested interests that would stand in the way. I know that airline competition and airlines world over is very, very tough. And negotiating seats and routes as far as airlines are concerned, I believe is not a very, very easy job. I have some experience in the past between Air India and German airlines trying to fly to India. So I think that's it's a little complicated, but we need, if it's important and it has to be done, we will certainly put in the political will that is called for in order to ensure that we achieve it. We've certainly taken some notes yesterday and today, and when I get back, I intend to talk to my colleagues and see how we can put that on a fast track.
Okay, this has to be short questions. I have a guy who's staring at me from the back. He's head of IMN. He threatened to switch off the mic system if we exceed 5:10. But I'll allow these two questions. Sit up, you first. Well, let me see the time. Yeah. Because we need a little bit of time for tea and the minister to mingle with you. He has a very tight schedule, so that's why I'm being. Yes, sit up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Your Excellency. Just a very quick question about India and ASEAN. When you started to your local cookies policy in the 1990s, ASEAN was, in a sense, speaking with one voice. It was quite easy to frame Indian foreign policy towards ASEAN. The stated policy is ASEAN centrality. But we all know now, ASEAN doesn't really speak with one voice anymore. How does that affect Indian diplomacy going forward?
Well, for somebody coming from India, used to so many languages and so many political parties, this is an easy game. That's not.
Okay, the gentleman behind, yes. I'll come to you in a minute. Yeah. Short question, no comments. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, Your Excellency. I'm a researcher at the Refining School. You mentioned the importance of fuel import. So my question is in regards to the potential of, say, gas import from Myanmar or from Iran. It hasn't been too successful in the past, but what do you see going into the future? Is there opportunity for that? And just a short second question, would India have any role to play, for instance, in humanitarian aspects like the Rohingya conflict? Thank you.
Well, quick answers there. I think that India is very hungry for fuel, as you know, and we are looking at diversifying and ensuring that our supply sources remain diversified. We are talking to the United States of America for a greater liberal regime for export of gas from the United States. We've just, in our bilateral in Brunei with Canada, received a very warm reception to a possibility of exploring for export from the eastern coast of Canada, exporting gas. We have a supply base in Iran, you know, but because of sanctions that we ourselves have subscribed to, the UN sanctions, not the US sanctions, because of insurance and transport issues, our purchases in Iran have gone down, but we are continuing to work on the Tapi pipeline. We expect hopefully that things will get sorted out in Iran and Afghanistan, and that we would then have a secure supply of gas from Central Asia. And then, of course, there are other alternatives that are still being considered. Much of our gas now is going to be coming in liquefied form, and then the be gasified. In fact, the interesting thing is that up to now we thought that the pipelines were not going to be viable because of the difficulty of going through Pakistan. But in more recent times, Pakistan is seeking gas from India. This may be an early indication of things to come, and hopefully one day interdependence and good sense, good economic sense will prevail, and the vast gas sources that are available in our not too distant neighborhood would become accessible to India.
Very last question, yes.
Minister, I believe I have the privilege of the last question.
Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Vivek Katpalia. I'm an Indian lawyer with a law firm in Singapore, Indian law firm. We've been here for 6 years. We've spent some time talking about Southeast Asia and China, and for obvious reasons. Another country with which we've been obviously expanding our relationship in the recent past has been Japan. And Singapore is playing a very important role for Japanese investors who have, their regional headquarters here or people here interacting with Indian counterparts. So we're seeing a lot of flow from Japan. So I wanted your views on our relationship with Japan and where you see it going forward, because it seems to be in a very friendly state of affairs with Japan, and your views on that would be welcome.
We have a very significant and special strategic partnership with Japan. And again, this is an example of how India is able to balance its friendships. We have a growing relationship with China, and we have an extremely fruitful relationship with Japan. And we don't allow one to affect the other. Japan is very welcome. I think there's some very important investments Japan is making in India. In the Delhi-Mumbai corridor, Japan has taken a very special interest. And we would like to see a lot more happening in Japan and ourselves. They have made some important far-reaching proposals like fast trains and so on, fast-speed trains, etc. We are still looking and considering some of those matters, but Japan is very important for us. And I think that as we increase our engagement in the Pacific, Japan again will obviously play a very important role. Thank you.
Earlier this year, when I met Minister Khurshid in Cochin for the Pravasi conference, I told him that there are a lot of little bit of bad news coming out of India. But the best news that came out from India at that time was the appointment of Mr. Salman Khurshid as the foreign minister, because he articulates the Indian foreign policy better than most people. And I think today his performance has substantiated my thoughts on this. Ladies and gentlemen, now I turn it to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for the insightful sharing, and thank you, Ambassador, for the eloquent moderation. I now request Ambassador Pillai. Ambassador Pillai will now present 2 ISAS books to the Minister as a token of the Institute's appreciation. The first book is titled Islam and Society, Sociological Explorations by ISAS Visiting Senior Research Fellow, Professor Riyaz Hassan.
Riyaz Hassan, can you stand up? He's the young one.
And the second book is titled India in South Asia, Domestic Identity Politics and Foreign Policy from Nehru to the BJP by ISAS Research Fellow Sundar Singh.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll now go in and have some tidbits and mingle.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this afternoon's public lecture. On behalf of ISAS, we thank you for your participation and continued support for our event. Here's a gentle reminder to complete the event evaluation form and drop it into the box as you make your way out after the tea reception. And now please join us for the tea reception. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event.